than his earlier hominid fossils.
Was that the Canopoi fossils by chance?
I think probably so.
Okay, I tried to find information on those, and strangely, the evolutionists don't want to talk about them.
No, they don't.
All right, I'm going to talk a bit here about this Canopoi hominid that he's talking about, because it's commonly brought up by, he doesn't go into any detail about it, it's just briefly mentioned, but I think it's worth going into some detail about, because it's another one of those popular creationist distortions. Now, the Canopoi hominid, it's Australopithecus anamensis, but the initial find was in 1965 by Howell and Patterson, and what they found is the distal part of a humerus. So the upper arm bone, just the distal portion of it, meaning just the joint. That's all that was found. Very, very small portion. But it was clearly a hominid, clearly not ape-like. It was clearly human-like. And so this, because of its age, it was originally thought to be 4.4 million years old, based on a locality. It's at 4.2 million years, so it's been adjusted a bit, but it's still very old. It certainly at that time predated all of the Australopithecine finds, and so, but when it was analyzed, it was described by the authors as very human-like. Now this leads me to a really interesting, and you'll see this throughout. You got to really be careful of this, and this is why I urge people, when you hear a creationist claim, to look up the original source yourself. Because in the creationist translation matrix, okay, the words resembles a human, or human-like, or more human-like than, translates to 100% exactly like a modern human. Okay? Does that make sense? So we find an old bone, and they say, the shape of the femur is remarkably human-like. They translate that to, why, they found a 500,000-year-old perfectly modern human? That's how it translates. The same thing goes with ape-like. If something has an ape-like characteristic, it's a chimpanzee or it's a gorilla. That's how that translates. So if somebody makes a comment on that, they believe the fossil has many ape-like features, a creationist will report that, and you go, well, just recently in New Scientist, they reported that the find was 100% chimpanzee. That's how they love to word these things. And that's what's going on here with the Canopoi hominid, what he's talking about. I think he was sort of cut off by Baugh. I think he would have loved to have gone into it in some detail. But anyway, this distal end of the humerus was analyzed, and now there's a bunch of crap I'm not going to get into about it. But what was her name? Senut, Senut, Bridget Senut. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She analyzed this. Now, she analyzed a cast of it and came to the conclusion that it was remarkably similar to a modern human distal end of a modern human humerus. Now, the original authors classified it as an Australopithecine, because even though we didn't have that portion of any Australopithecine arm, we had the upper part of an Australopithecine humerus, which was remarkably like a modern human's. So it was sort of thought, well, the distal half must look like a modern human as well. It would be logical, and it turns out that's the case. But that was their reasoning in the first place for assigning it to Australopithecus. Anyway, the whole point. I'm sorry, this is getting rambly. I apologize. But Bridget Senut said it was remarkably human-like. That was picked up by creationists all over the place, and even Gish. Henry Morris, Morris and Parker, they report without any details. They talk about, and at Canopoi in Kenya, a modern human bones were found in 4.5 million year old sediments. They report it like that with no other details given, as if they found this perfect, as if there was nothing unambiguous about it or anything like that. As it turns out, Bridget Senut retracted her claims because it was pointed out that she was working with a cast, and the cast didn't reflect some of the features on it. When those features were taken into account, it classed the bone, and now that we have a lot more material, remember this was before any of the Australopithecus afarensis material. This is before new finds were made in South Africa, finds were found in Lake Turkana, these kinds of things. So a lot more material has come out since then, and now we know that the Canopoi hominid fits the species Australopithecus anamensis. It matches all the other material of anamensis and other Australopithecines we have. It's a perfectly good Australopithecine, and in this multivariate analysis, it lumps with the robust Australopithecines, but it's with all of the Australopithecines far more than it does with modern humans or apes. So anyway, I just thought I'd clear that up. Sorry, I know it was a long explanation, but it's this story is abused. They throw that word out there like it's some magic term, like, oh, they don't want to talk about Canopoi. They don't want to talk about it. I have 3 fucking papers dedicated to Canopoi hominid, written by evolutionists. It's mentioned in every single book I have on human evolution, just about, from the at least ones done after the date of its find. It's briefly mentioned, usually as an enigmatic fossil with, not really known where it belongs, but it's still mentioned. I'm not sure who's not wanting to talk about it. That implies that we're keeping the secret, like, oh crap, we better not talk about this. If we better not let creotards find out that we have this fossil that's a perfectly modern human. That's what they're trying to say in that. Okay, well, I'm going to go on to the next part.
Was the discoverer, and he made the admission late in his life. And then Mary Leakey, before she died, admitted that these tracks are human-like, upright posture.
All right, we evolutionists are totally busted here. Baugh, again, has blown our cover. So the Laetoli footprints, discovered by Mary Leakey in 1976, fully excavated in 1977, and described in a paper in 1978. Now, right before she died, in 1996, she admitted that they were upright. That these tracks were actually made by an upright bipedal hominid. Okay, and not like she originally said in 1978 in the published paper that they were. What did she say again? Oh yeah, that they were a fucking upright bipedal hominid. What the fuck is this guy trying? What's he saying here? She admitted before she died? You mean 18 years before she died? First of all, she admitted that what they were originally first suspected to be, and then they were published in a peer-reviewed journal as a bipedal upright walking hominid. What he's trying to say, I know what he's trying to say. What he's trying to say here, without actually, I guess maybe not, he doesn't want to blatantly lie and say that she claimed they were a completely modern human. But he's trying to say that, he's trying to state the fact that she admitted they were an upright bipedal hominid, which the audience is going to hear as, my God, she admitted that they found this ancient human footprint that's a modern human, But the reality is, never was a secret about it from the moment they first started being excavated. It's like, I think we're looking at an Australopithecus track. I think that's what we're looking at here, is what people said, what people thought, and subsequent analysis has only gone on to show that. There was no admitting of anything. There was no secret to admit. It was stated from the very beginning. And again, I'm not sure, this whole thing of late in her life before she died, again, another deathbed confession. We know how they love those.
Here we have a feminine track. We know because of a ratio of the internal structure of the heel. And this is from Laetoli, from the ash beds. And we have the great toe, the phalanges trench, the curvature of the other toes, and the metatarsal base, along with the ball of the foot. The interior section of the longitudinal arch, the instep.
The reason I included this clip is, well, there's actually one thing I wanted to point out is he states that a feminine track, and we can tell by the ratio of the internal structure, or something like that, whatever he says. To this day, the best footprint experts in the world have speculated that the intermediate sized one may be a female, but all of that is said very, very tentatively, with absolutely no absolute knowledge. That's just an assumption, because when we see 3 animals, a baby and 2 adults, and one adult is smaller, we think, well, the small one must be the female. That's the only actual reason for it. That right there. There's no internal structure ratio that we can use to determine whether or not it's a feminine footprint. But that goes along with the rest of that little clip, is that it sure sounds like Baugh knows what he's talking about. You listening to that analysis, all those technical terms for footprint analysis, Baugh must really be an expert on footprints, right? Except for the fact that he says that the following footprints in the handprint are indistinguishable from modern humans. Personally, it makes me question his level of expertise on the subject.
Yes, and they were found in roughly the same layer that Lucy was found.
But how close to Lucy?
It was. You would probably know that. I know it was a long way away.
Oh yes, it was tens and tens of miles away.
Okay, I've forgotten the number exactly.
Again, inserted just as a commentary on their expertise in discussing this issue in the first place. Just so you know, the Lucy fossil was found at Hadar in Ethiopia, and Laetoli footprints were found in Tanzania. Just for fun, I drew a line between the two sites here, and the distance is 1,030 miles. That's 1,650 kilometers. Before anybody jumps to the conclusion that by increasing the distance between the two fossil sites, that I've only made the problem for evolution worse, that somehow the footprints are even farther away from the actual fossils, I think it's important to note that the Laetoli site also had fossils. In fact, I believe 30 individuals. I may be incorrect on that, including the type specimen. This is LH4, the type specimen of the species Australopithecus afarensis, was found at the Laetoli site in conjunction with the footprints.
They look at these, they say, well, these have to be from Lucy, because in their evolutionary mindset, humans had not yet evolved yet. So once again, we come back to the question, where's the human fossils? We've got them.
We've got the human fossils.
So says the expert on human evolution, who doesn't know where Hadar is in relation to Laetoli. How interesting. Now, I'm being serious here now. This makes me laugh. There's a couple of things about it that I think is funny. Okay, now just to summarize what they're saying here, this is found throughout creationist literature, is that the Laetoli tracks are 4 million years old and identical to those made by a modern human. And the only reason we don't assume they're made by a modern human is because they're too old to be from a modern human. So in other words, our evolutionary presupposition is taking the place of actual science, that a child looking on the site would immediately know that a human had walked there. And we only invent an ape man walking there because that's what we believe must have happened. Now that's a laughable position, because what they leave out, and there's more to it. I don't have time to get into all the details of it, the truly humorous portion. But what they leave out is the fact that we have Australopithecine foot bones. We have some really good ones now. We have some really excellent reconstructions. Actually, we've had them for a long time. We've got better ones now, coming out of South Africa for Africanus and East Africa for Afarensis. As we're excavating these foot bones out, and better analyses are able to be done on them, it's coming to be more and more clear that an Australopithecine had to make those tracks at Laetoli. No human could have made those tracks. The foot bones differ. The foot bones there's characteristics. The toe bones are longer. Again, they're slightly curved. The big toe is slightly off as compared to a modern human. There's a few other characteristics about it. Plus the size difference is pretty enormous as well. But anyway, the point is that it's clear that an Australopithecine made those tracks, and most likely Afarensis, since we know we have specimens of that species and no other from the exact same date and place. But the funniest part about this, the part that I derived the most humor from, is that now creationists love to cite Stern and Sussman. Those are the ones that first looked at the hands and feet of Australopithecines and determined that they were curved, implying an arboreal lifestyle, that they were more ape-like than human-like in terms of the actual finger and shape. Stern and Sussman also did the analysis that fit those bones to the Laetoli tracks. That's what's funny. Now, they leave that part of the analysis out. They cite the part where they said they were ape-like, leaving out the part where they also said, and by the way, the Laetoli tracks only fit this species. Anyway, I'm gonna go on to part 6,